Morning, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us again on day 2. My name's Brittany Schulman. I'm the product marketing manager at Bazaar Voice. And before we dive into today's panel, we're going to go ahead and do a poll. So, Crystal, do you want to introduce this?
So do you own or support sales enablement in your current PMM role? I know that some companies have a specific designated team, some don't, and so love to know if you own it, if you're a solo PMM, and that way we understand the POV of the room.
We all support each other if you go by the last talk, right, with all the collaboration. Last one is interesting.
I want that job.
Cool. So it sounds like most of us are in the same boat of supporting sales enablement. So you're in the right place. So actually, we're going to take this back for a second. Let's go back and have everyone introduce themselves. If I can figure out how to work the clicker. Nope, we're just going to continue advancing. There we go. All right, Crystal, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Crystal. I am a senior PMM at Velocity Global. I currently own all things payroll, all things finance, immigration, and just the go-to-market. I've been in product marketing for about 10 years and marketing in general almost 15. And the way that I got into product marketing was I started my career in financial services and really helped to support financial advisors understand product better, but most importantly, really the voice of the customer. And so since then, I've been very passionate about making sure that I keep a close ear to the ground and help with that enablement side of things.
Hi, Evan Knopp, head of marketing at Turquoise Health. So I've had a lot of different roles, both in product marketing and content marketing, previously at another health tech startup, and then at IBM before that, so very different kind of experiences all the way around. Turquoise is a price transparency platform for consumers and B2B, so we kind of have two very different go-to-market motions that we're working on right now.
My name is Abhinav Joshi. I'm the director of product marketing at Red Hat. In terms of my roles, when I was in high school, I wanted to be a painter. But then my parents were like, yeah, it could be a hobby. It cannot be a full-time thing. And then I did my bachelor's in chemical engineering, and I worked for like a year in like a petroleum company. But that was not my cup of tea, and today I'm here in marketing. And like over the last 20 years, I've had all kinds of roles in pre-sales, post-sales, product management, product marketing. And I'm not based out of Austin. I'm based in the Raleigh area. The second fastest growing city in the US, like after Austin.
Awesome. And as I mentioned earlier, my name's Brittany. I'm over at Bazaar Voice. We do retail software. Pretty much anytime you read a product review online, you're interacting with Bazaar Voice. I came to product marketing by way of journalism, content marketing, demand gen content marketing, content strategy, and now I'm over here in product. But let's dive into why you guys are here. Before we start talking about building a really good sales enablement program, I think it'll be helpful to define what is sales enablement, because it's different for everyone.
Absolutely. So sales enablement for me is really helping to empower your sales team and really get an alignment internally of the organization of how you're going to help show up into the market. So not necessarily a go-to-market strategy, but really helping to define exactly who you are as an organization, how you show up, and what kind of products you sell, and also making sure that you share in on those pain points of if your customer has a specific need or a niche, you're able to really define that, and you're aligned, and with the product marketer, you're helping to help bring in what that messaging and that positioning looks like so that you're all in sync and on the same page, and collectively you can get and build a feedback loop so that it is defined and organized.
Yeah, what Crystal said. I mean, I think of it as just like sales efficiency. So, and not only sales efficiency, but it helps like marketing efficiency. So if your sales enablement is more, if your sales is more efficient and you're helping kind of deals move along the pipeline faster and be more efficient there, I think it's going to not, it's not going to have an effect on your cost per lead for marketing, but it's going to have an effect on your cost per acquisition. So just think of it as like you're not only helping sales, you're helping your marketing metrics as well.
And I'd like to add is on top of what you both said, yeah, it's the way to get the deals to close at a fast pace and keep the customers happy. And one more thing I'd like to add here is that you also have to empower the sales teams with the domain and knowledge and the knowledge of the customers, because they want to hear about like their pain points or understanding that the vendors have of the customers' pain points and like how you will specifically help them. So to make sure that the sales teams have the domain knowledge and are able to specifically point out the pain points that the customers have, and be able to map the solution that you're able to offer and how we can help them be like a strategic advisor and not just as a vendor in the environment. So giving the sales teams the confidence to have those conversations.
We definitely love a confident, happy sales team. And when folks go ahead and build those sales enablement programs, as you'll see on the screen, these are just some of the values and benefits of having a good sales enablement program. Is there anything you guys want to add on this?
Sure. So for me, is when you look at the whole encompassing product of what sales enablement is, it really helps to improve the sales productivity. It helps align people to what they can help, but it's proficiency, right? We share about how making sure that things are consistent and constant. It also helps increase the win rates, and those win rates are good. You have to analyze both your losses and your wins, and I think it's really important to figure out not only to celebrate your wins, but also in a strategic way, celebrate those losses so that you can go back to the starting block and figure out what was working, what did not work, what was that, maybe it was a tone that a certain sales reps use that you have to help bring in and show them about more of a, an EQ level of what that emotional intelligence is, because sales has a lot of that, right? And I think that brings into what can bring value to an enablement team.
Absolutely. All right. Back to you, Crystal.
So this is the 4 pillars of sales enablement that I live by, and so it's really helping to align. So did the sales team, in general, did the sales org get the memo? Do they understand what in the world is going on? Because half the time they don't. And so let's figure out a way of their form of communication, whether it's they read their email or they don't. Is it a Slack channel that you create? How are you helping to build that so that everybody is on the same page? I think that is so crucial. Assets. What do the assets look like? I've spoke to so many of you, over the yesterday, and we noticed that depending on the tech stack that you have, are they being utilized? Are the assets actually being utilized? What is working better? What is not working better? Do you have things that are sunsetting so that you don't have to redo them? I think it's really important to making sure that clean visuals are easier to comprehend than and no offense to Amazon, but 6 pages is not going to work for my sales team because they're not going to read it. How can I help create a 1-pager that has the defined messaging when I'm building that? And then looking at the content, is the content resonating, if it's internally facing or externally facing, making sure that there is alignment there. And then also the tribal knowledge, that for me is huge. That is your feedback loop. That's just a fancy word here, but the feedback loop. Are you getting your actual sales reps to give you back the feedback that you need? What I have created in my past is creating sales advisory boards. And so those sales advisory boards are crucial to me. Just like your customer marketing teams will have your customer advisory boards, sales advisory boards are crucial. What you do there is really helping to define who your senior sales reps are, really creating a board of 10 or 15. I can't really do more than that, especially if they're not in the same city. But with that being said, is you're creating a board and making sure that they can give you back what's working, what's not working, what are the best practices, giving and tweaking a strategy that you can take back to your junior sales reps and pour into them. A lot of times our senior sales reps don't have the time to help pour into some of the junior reps, and you as an advocate can help build that for them and being consistent to making sure that they feel supported if you don't have somebody else in the organization that's already doing that.
And I think that sets us up really nicely with that definition and that foundation of sales enablement to start talking about some of the challenges companies are having when implementing sales enablement programs. I know at Bazaar Voice, we're fortunate to have a really awesome sales enablement team, but I know that's not always the case. Abhinav, you want to start us off
sure.
there?
Yeah, like in my case, right, what I've seen is that the first key thing is that there may be a lot of topics that you have to enable the sales teams on, right? It could be, especially like in a large organization where they have multiple products, and each of the seller also thinks of them as the enablement person. So like a lot of priorities, and the sales teams are getting bombarded with like a lot of enablement sessions, be online or it could be offline, one-on-ones and so on. So then they kind of have the issue that, okay, give me a prioritized list, the things I need to focus on. So yeah, the lack of focus. Yeah, and then the second key thing I've seen is that the content is not like snackable, right? Where people have a very short the attention span, and especially if they are going into the sales meetings, they only have like 5 or 10 minutes. And in that, they want to be able to have the key points memorized, that, okay, these are the 4 points I need to come up with in this meeting. So giving them that kind of quick hits kind of content is extremely important. And then also what I've seen as a key challenge is that the enablement is not done on a frequent basis, because I've seen that like you have to say the same thing like at least 5 or 6 times before people are able to understand and are able to make a good use of it. So that it becomes a challenge if you don't do it on a frequent basis. And then also I've seen that like a lot of times the content becomes stale. So by the time it reaches the training organization, the content is probably 6 to 8 months old and may not be the latest and greatest. It's a very competitive market out there, so you have to make sure the content is all up to date and the enablement is up to date as well. So yeah, these are some of the challenges top of mind for me.
Yeah, version control is like, I feel like it's going to be everyone's issue. It's something, the second something gets stale, someone in the sales team will find it. And when they're using it with a client, something's out of date, it's really a problem. So, I mean, there's a lot of issues that can be fixed with some sort of like CMS that you can point them to that kind of keeps everything to date. But yeah, version control is something that no matter what company I've been at has been an issue.
I think for me, it's also making sure that you have a clear communication strategy when you're communicating with them. I think that's the benefit of when you have resistance, is that obviously being professional, but making sure that there's that clear communication of that expectation and what's the sales motion? What is the sales play at goal here? Like, what is that common goal so that you have that rapport with them and being able to develop that content management, right? That difficulty in identifying and gathering. You want to make sure that you have relevant content for what's happening. And what is, whether it's you have a certain QBR metric that you want to hit or whatever it may be, those are things that need to be very clear and supported, and making sure that it's aligned there with senior leaders, especially if you have a RevOps team or whoever you report to. I think that being able to build that community is crucial.
Definitely. I think that, what Brandon was telling us earlier about building those cross-functional relationships, I think sales enablement's definitely one of those that can take a lot of work, but there's definitely a lot of payoff. So I think we can all acknowledge there are definitely some challenges when enabling these sales enablement programs, but how can we address them?
The way that you address them is, it can be hard, but you have to be that voice in the room sometimes. You have to be the one to raise your hand and say, respectfully, I agree with you, but this is also another way to do it. Definitely there's been conversations where you don't want to be the one to act as a know-it-all. That is not the point here. The point is how do you build that lasting relationship where you can be gentle enough to push back and say, no, customers are saying this. This is how we should probably show up. This is how we should probably look at things in a different light. And so I don't know if you guys have had that before where they push back and...
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just having buy-in from like the senior sales leader has been key. I mean, if you don't have that person to kind of enforce, like, all right, we're changing messaging, we're changing the way we do this demo or the way we reach out to customers or clients. I mean, I think having that person to then go back and say, all right, we're 20% of people are now using the new demo, or 50% of people are going into Gong and listening, and a lot of people are still using old messaging. That senior sales leader will be able to kind of push those initiatives forward.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And you also have to prioritize on a few topics, and especially like if your company has a portfolio of products, right? The prioritization is going to be key there because the sellers can only learn so much and be able to have the effective conversations with their customers. So have the collaboration, right, with the stakeholders, and in this case, it's the enablement team, if that's a separate team, as well as the leaders on the sales side. And in that case, you also have to go to like each of the geo as well and get the leaders. And also what I've seen is it's about training the trainers because like yesterday there was a panel here and at AWS I heard there are 30,000 sellers, right? So it's impossible for you to train all the 30,000 sellers as a PMM. So you have to find the trainers in the field, right? The people who are your champions. And have them scale the enablement. So train the trainers in the field in each of the geos, and then they can actually use your content and also give you like a lot of good feedback that, okay, I tried X, and it went only so far, but then the rest of the stuff did not work. So they kind of become the advocates for you in the field, and your people that you can call all the time, and they trust you, and you trust them. And that like helps you scale the sales enablement in the field across different regions, especially at a large company.
Definitely. So I know we touched a little bit on CMS, but we'd really love to take some more time here to talk about how technology can help with the effectiveness of sales enablement. I know each of you have different backgrounds and have had different teams that you've worked with to enable. So I'd love to talk more about how the technology can help.
Definitely. Obviously, companies are going to have different budgets. I think sales content management is huge, whether it's internal or external. We talked about different tech stacks that we had. I think what's so important there is that consistency, what your sales advisors can actually share out with the customer. We talked about how they create their own decks sometimes, and they should not be client facing, but they are, unfortunately. And so I think by having that consistent message is huge. Another thing is that sales training and coaching. We talked yesterday in the roundtable that we were at about whether you should or should not quiz or test out your sales reps. I've seen both sides where it works very positively and it can work negatively with senior sales reps. But with the junior sales rep, I think it's really great because it's like drinking out of a water hose. And if you can help with creating consistency of whether it is a 10-minute presentation about what the product does, we use Litmus. And so I think what we do well is we have that quiz, we have that opportunity, and it's a sales enablement platform that does very well for our organization. And everybody's different, so I think that can help people is making sure that there's consistency there.
Yeah, I mean, I've used Gong a lot in the past, and using that to kind of go in and see how assets are actually being used on demos and conversations, and making sure that like the positioning actually aligns with what we're trying to do with the company. So I think that's been really helpful to get like insights, real world insights of how that stuff is actually being used. And then I've seen a couple of instances of implementing stuff like Seismic for CMS. So that's, again, it was more of a version control and having one CMS for really everything on the sales side. But I thought Gong and anything that's like SalesLoft, anything that's really monitoring calls and demos has been really helpful in being able to figure out what's working and what's not.
Yeah, and a couple of things I want to add there is modularize your training, right? So that way people can do it at their own pace, and there are technologies on that as well. Like if you look at the PMA courses, they're a very good example of that. The courses are like online, modular, and you can go section by section at your own pace because people have so much going on. They may not be able to do like the live training all the time in terms of the enablement. So being able to use the tools where you can like record the stuff and make it modular, that okay, each of the chunk is say 10 to 15 minutes. That helps a lot. People can work at their own pace. And then a key is the tool. You should be able to update the training as well, like all the modules you've kind of built out there. Because if the tool is going to be complicated and you can't make the frequent updates, then the training is going to be outdated very soon. So that's why I always like look for tools where, and there are all kinds of tools out there. So my company uses like some of those as well. So we use the Adobe tools. We kind of use like Aprimo and a few others as well. YouTube as well we've used. Like all kinds of stuff we tried out. So that's what I want to add.
I think one thing that's been a shift in the last 2 years is I've also helped with using different type of virtual sales engagement tools like a Vidyard, where I help with coaching like videos that are 30-second to a minute snippets of, personalized type videos to some of their customers. And I think it's been really well received, especially because they take the time to put in that personal feel to it versus just an email. I know that there's a lot of different LinkedIn influencers about messaging, especially with email and outreach. And I think that tools like that really help. We use outreach as a form of communication, making sure that we can track what the engagement side of it is too, but Vidyard has been very successful for us for video engagement.
Yeah, that's a great way to adapt, especially as, we're not going to have in-person sales trainings or on-sites and things like that. I'm still sitting here thinking about version control of documents, and if anyone out there has figured out how to take care of version control with their sales team, please let us know, because I think we're all trying to figure that one out. So we've implemented technology. What metrics should companies actually use to, one, determine if they've implemented the right technology, and two, determine if they're taking the right activities within their sales enablement program? I'm going to throw this to you, Evan.
Yeah, win rate's obviously super important, but I've kind of taken the positioning of like, let's figure out how to fix one part of the sales cycle. So, if you look at win rate as a whole, it can make a huge difference to go from like 15, 18%. That could be millions of dollars of revenue. But if you try to fix the whole process at once, it's probably not going to be super successful. So we've looked at like, do we have a really poor conversion from, setting a demo to actually someone attending it, or someone, getting to the point of pricing discussions and then they kind of drop off. So how do we fix one piece of that? Like an example of that could be, if you have a really good, set rate where you're setting 40% of like calls that you're taking, and then, a really poor attendance rate of those demos, maybe the lead is getting cold, maybe we're not, maybe we're setting it too far in advance and then people don't care anymore 3 weeks from now. So trying to get them to set it within a week or two, or providing the like salesperson with like, here's a 3-touch email cadence to send to them before you have that demo to just keep them warm. So just figuring out little ways like that. Another one that I've focused in on that's kind of win rate related is like time to first deal. So if you can have some impact on like sales training and be a part of that process, like when they first join the company, you can kind of figure out like how long does it usually take an AE to get to their first one deal, which could be 3 to 4 months sometimes, or even longer. Can you bring that down a month, which could save the company technically a lot of money if you hit one on like sales training, but two on like let's ramp them up quicker. So for that, like I just suggest like get as close to like the onboarding training as possible. So we even had at a previous company, we had this program where if you sign up to be part of this program, you would like be someone that would welcome a new employee in. So you would be like their partner for the first month of their time at the company. And so I joined that, and every time a new salesperson was on, I was the person like jumping in and be like, I'll take that person, and be a part of their like onboarding, and they can come to you as a resource, and then you can kind of track like how long it takes them to like ramp up.
Yeah, and something I want to add there is what we do is like we've done sales plays, and in Salesforce we are able to map the deals like the deals where the sellers are using the sales plays, so that way we can kind of measure as well that the content is being used or the enablement we've done on the sales plays. So what's been the impact in the field? Like, are they actively using the sales plays or not? And then, like as we do our business reviews, so that's where we have the leaders from all the geos kind of join in as well, and they're able to provide the metrics that, okay, based on the enablement that was done on the sales plays, we've been able to influence like X million dollars of pipeline, and all the data is in Salesforce. So we can go in and check like in there and see what deals are being like influenced by the sales plays. So that way Yeah, and then the content usage as well. Like you see, like all the slides you build out and the demos you do are getting used in the field, and people may ask you a lot of questions. And so if people are asking like a lot of questions, that's a good thing. That means they're paying attention and they are using the stuff.
And they trust you.
Yeah, and at our company, we have like an email alias that's for the entire company, believe it or not. Like all the 21,000 people are on there. So people will provide you the feedback on that alias as well. So it's a double-edged kind of sword, right? Where like all the companies in there, but at the same time, it means that people are paying the attention in sales on all the stuff you've built out. So yeah, that's been the other way for us as well. Yeah, and we continue to see what is the best way to do the metrics. Because I think it was in the opening of the session yesterday that, okay, like how do you prove the value of marketing? At the end of the day, it's about share of voice as well as closing deals and be able to map the activities very precisely as compared to saying that, yeah, we helped 500 sales teams. And because of us, the deals got closed. So yeah, you have to keep an eye on this.
I would just add also customer satisfaction. It may not necessarily live all the time under sales enablement, but it could be in customer success, and I think that's another piece of where you can also measure. And then lastly, you can also see what the sales cycle is, what the timeline is. You can build out when you look at your sales funnel, how long, whether it's top of funnel, bottom of funnel, how long does it take for a deal to averagely close, so that you can also figure out where you can help and support that as well.
Definitely, that's a really great call out. I know I spoke to some folks here yesterday who are product marketing team of one. So if they are, supporting sales enablement, or if they are owning it, that's a lot on one person's plate or for a smaller team. So with, metrics, technology, if you guys had to boil it down to maybe one or two actions folks can start taking today, or to measure if they're from a smaller team, like what would be the big focus?
For me, it would be win rate. I think that when you look at that, you should look at that to add to your competitive intel. They go hand in hand, and looking at what your win-loss is and how you can help evaluate that. Not necessarily that you're going to be tracked on that, but I think that you can figure out how to best go to market on that and see what the situation is in that. So that, for me, would be the number one.
I don't know if I'd say number one for me, but something that was it's kind of overlooked, and something that Crystal just kind of brought up is that like customer success. So they basically turn into salespeople when it comes to renewals. So enabling them with like data on how much, like if you have data on how much the product was used by the customer over the year, and going and kind of having like a different type sort of presentation, whether someone's in a different industry or a different vertical, whatever. But kind of enabling customer success at renewal time the same way you're doing it with the sales team is really important. So I say that's just something to keep in mind, is that, renewals, it's an easy way to continue that like revenue growth, and some people, the product marketing team a lot of the time doesn't really focus on it. So focusing on customer success the same way you do on sales is super important.
That's a good call.
Yeah, for me it's both, and also like helping the sales rep meet the quota like as soon as possible, because at the end of the day the sales reps are coin operated, so there should be something in it for them as well. So yeah, that as well as for them to be able to get the public references, because the customers are going to ask you, right? Okay, like who in my geo, and also especially in my industry, is doing the same thing that you are pitching me. So so you should be able to have some of those examples as well, and that only happens like the win happens, and then it takes some time as well to make the customer happy with the deployment, and make sure they're able to achieve their business goals and objectives, and be able to achieve the ROI on the solution. So yeah, that's how you win the trust of the customer and get those public references. I mean, it's not easy, but it takes a while to get that done. So yeah, that's key for me.
And if you're like at a small company and you're doing this product marketing role by yourself, like it's going to fall to you to go out and kind of get these references and make sure that they're in one place for people to use. So, and those are worth their weight in gold. So I think that that's something that's super important to figure out, is like what's your goal? Is it references in a certain geo? Is it references in a certain industry, small, mid-market enterprise? So yeah, I think that's something good to focus on.
And going back, I forgot to mention this. When you evaluate win rates, the whole point of that is to making sure that it helps knowing that if you have a higher win rate, it helps with a indicator as that the sales enablement tools that you currently have are effective in providing the teams with what they need and how to be successful. So that is the reason why I look at that number.
Definitely, and it's interesting. I was speaking with, we're a partner of Crayon. We use them for battle cards and all that good stuff to enable our sales team. And I was chatting with one of their VPs, and he was telling me that almost 70% of deals end up coming down to competitive. So talking about those win rates and that enablement, I think that's all very, very timely. But now that we've talked, for one-man bands of product marketing, overall for sales enablement programs, what should building next steps look like?
You really have to look at, for me, and what I've done is making sure that you look to continuous improvement. Nothing's going to be perfect the first go around, but as long as you have that mindset where you are willing and able to get constructive criticism on what's working and what's not working, and listening to all sides, whether it's the customer voice, listening to the sales voice, listening to the things and keeping your ear in the ground, and also making sure you have a great understanding of your competitive intel. We also use Crayon as well. You have to be consistent. You can't just let something sunset and forget about it. I think you have to make sure that things are continuously moving so it can be successful, because in tech, a lot of us are in tech, it moves so fast and your competitor is either on your heels or right by you. So you need to make sure that you're looking at ways to think outside of the box sometimes.
Most definitely. Evan?
Yeah, I kind of going back to what I said before, is just like that setting small goals that you feel like you have a realistic chance of reaching. It just focusing in on one little piece of win rate, focusing in on one thing that you're trying to get more usage out of. I think those are little small goals that can like add up to something bigger, instead of kind of like, all right, we want to increase win rate by 10%, probably unrealistic right off the bat. So maybe that can be a longer term goal, but try to figure out something small that you can then show value, and then maybe you would get more resources for sales enablement. So something that you can show to like your SVP of sales and say, hey, look at this one thing that we've been able to do with one person doing it.
Yeah, definitely agree on that. Like focusing on something kind of small, trying it out, fail fast, and be able to evolve it. That's kind of key here. And also making sure the priorities are actually aligned. Like in your group with the sales, the enablement team and the sales and the actual sales teams, because if all of them have different priorities, then things are not happening, right? And the win rates can get impacted. So focus on a few things, modularize the stuff, and be able to make the updates at a fast pace, keep an eye on the competition, and make sure that your sales teams have the latest and greatest information on the competitors and the key points they should be bringing to the table. And be able to update like the stuff you built out for the field is going to be very important.
Yeah, fail fast is always good advice.
Yeah.
And another thing I wanted to leave was, especially when you leverage technology, look at things that can help you automate or process things. I'm a huge fan of like AI technology as well, and so I use Jasper for a lot of things to help me start stuff. Obviously, I help fix and tweak things, but I think by helping to do that, it's not going to help give me a huge burden that I have to write everything from scratch, which I really liked about Jasper. But the other thing there is like, if you create a committee, I've always helped build or be part of pricing committees. Pricing is something I'm also very passionate about, but with leveraging your team members, if you can have one or two people from different parts of the company that can help give you another set of eyes. I've always had a 4-eye approach where somebody else can review what I've done to see if maybe I've just been so focused on something that I missed something. I think that can help you too, and ask for help. I know a lot of us as product marketers want to be perfectionists. We have that A-type personality, but ask somebody to help you collaborate with you so that you're not taking the big burden of that. And as you were sharing, customer success, they're eager to go into another role. If you can bring them in to help you with something, they're also so close to the customer, and I think that's a really big part of how you can help with setting the goals in the enablement program as well, is don't feel like you're alone. There are other people in the organization. If you ask kindly, they can help you. So don't be afraid to ask that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good note to end on, Crystal. Sales enablement really does require a lot of cross-functional partnerships, and it takes a village. But with that, we're open for Q&A. We'd all love to connect with you on LinkedIn, in person after this. Come find us, come chat with us, and we'll throw it over to Q&A.
Okay, we have lots of questions. Okay, how do you align responsibilities between PMM and enablement teams? And how would you strike a balance between knowing the best way to make that pitch versus acknowledging that it might not be you, but the salesperson actually making the pitch? Two-part question.
I can start there, if you guys are okay with that. Yeah, so at my company, like how we work is that like all the positioning, the messaging, and like a lot of the core content is kind of built out by the PMMs. And we collaborate a lot with the sales enablement leadership as well as the sales leadership as well. And like a lot of the program management like aspects of, okay, what's going to be the structure of the enablement and like how often we'll do it. So all those, so the key responsible people in there is the enablement like organization. But the PMMs are kind of seen as the subject matter experts because they have the domain knowledge, the customer knowledge as well. So that's how we've kind of divided the work. That okay, the core pieces are built out by the PMMs. The enablement team takes that, so they modularize them, and they scale things out and help with the sales team.
To Jason's question, how do you align responsibilities between PMM and enablement teams? That's a great question. PMM's own messaging and positioning, how you want to show up. It's our role to help influence them on what we're trying to say, and then also influence what the sequence is going to be, whether it's a certain email cadence or whatever it may be. Our role is to help influence. They're also the experts when it comes to content design or when it comes to like learning design. I'm not sure if I'm using the words correctly, but they're the experts of learning modules and making sure that they know what's best and how sales reps take in the information. Our job is to make sure that the information is clean and concise. We don't want to make it too fluffy. We want to get to the point. And so that's where we align together. They design it. We tell them what we want to write, and whether you have a content writer or not, I write a lot of my own stuff. But that's how I've seen it be successful. I'd love to hear if anybody else has something otherwise, but you definitely have to draw the line because sometimes they can take advantage and they'll want you to do it all. But if you can come in together as a partnership, I think that's the best course of action there.
Yeah, and speaking to part two of that question about how to strike the balance between knowing what the pitch should be and working with the salesperson to actually make the pitch. I think that makes a really good call for what Crystal suggested about the sales advisory boards. You can create the messaging, but if you talk to your sales team or you listen to gong calls and it's not hitting with the clients or the customers and folks aren't resonating with it, then you do have to go back, reevaluate the messaging, reevaluate the positioning that you've created to really make sure that when it does get delivered by the salesperson that they do nail it every time.
And don't let the sales advisory board freak you out or like get you anxious. We all have the same amount of time in the day. It's making sure that you put that on a calendar ahead of time and you plan for it, that you can make it successful. I understand salespeople are busy, they want to close deals, but the coolest thing about the way that you can position this is that you plan forward. Once a month meetings, you make it exciting, you entice them, you give them a reward and not just monetarily. How do you shine them, right? There was the last conversation about how do you highlight other people, not you. It's not about us. It's how you help empower them in their voice because they want to be talked about, right? And so I think that's a way that you can position it. And if you just plan your calendar months in advance, I do this with a lot of people that I work with is I will plan meet and greets. Like I don't have time on my calendar right now, but I consistently have like 1 15, 20-minute meet and greet just so that I can meet other people in the company that way. And it helps. So just plan ahead and it'll help you and our mental workload as well.
Okay, so how do you manage, I'm using air quotes, sales enablement when it comes to e-commerce sales? Or I'm going to add to that, where there isn't a seller, where a lot of companies and technologies are pivoting to PLG or product-led growth motions, what happens to enablement? Then who are we enabling? How do we shift that? What's the scoop? What do you guys know?
I've never worked in e-commerce sales, so I can't quite on that part, but PLG is something we're working on now. So our enablement is basically feeding information and data into a tool called app queues that'll have in-app notifications. So that's basically what I'm using as a seller. So I'm kind of putting in our own messaging in there and trying to push them to resources or to upgrade or anything like that. So that's basically what I've used as sales enablement, is just like, let's use as much as we can of this in-app notification for like trying to move someone from a free to a paid version.
I would also add to that. We use Pendo for a lot of so I build out Pendo guides, and I love Pendo because it's just easy to use, but I help influence, whether it's the marketing ops team who owns it or it's the product team. I figure out ways, and I don't let it be there so long that it's not gonna get used, but I track the metrics and seeing how things are being used. Are people even paying attention to my Pendo bubble? Because if they're not, then I did something wrong. So I actually like to look at other companies and how they do it. It doesn't have to be a competitor, but what engages you, whether it's like a chatbot, do you care about the chatbot? Does the chatbot annoy you? So there are things like that on behaviors that I look at as just a consumer myself. So I would just advise you guys, if you're not already doing that as product marketers, I'm sure you are, but look at the way that other companies in e-commerce or anything that you purchase are tracking you or doing things. If you're like on a learning module and it tells you like, hey, do you need help? And then this little chat pops up. Those are things that you guys can also look at of how that experience on a sales enablement, because it is part of that as well.
Definitely.
Okay,
Yeah, and something I want to add is like my company is in the transition from like the SLG to the PLG motions, right? Where we see that the sales teams have the questions that, okay, what's my role into this? Because they want to see that, okay, no, I should be like in the loop from day one and be knocking the customer's doors. But the PLG is not about that. So the guidance we give them is, okay, let the customer try the things out, and we use the like tools as well, like Pendo and so on. So that way we're able to tell the sales teams that, or the sales teams are able to see that, okay, at what point did the customer try the solution out, and at what point they dropped out, right? I mean, if at all. So that way they're able to reach out the customers with like very specific asks that, hey, we saw that you tried it out, but then we haven't seen you on the platform for a few days, so can we help you on something? And we're trying to automate that process as well. But yeah, right now it's like a transition, and I'm sure like a lot of the companies are going through the same kind of transition as well and figuring their way out. So yeah, it's a journey.
So that gives me, and this also tells my age, but like Microsoft Clippy vibes, or like give you hot tips on like how to use the product. But I'm here for it. I like it. Selfish question, because I have the microphone, so I get to ask a fun question. I feel like with sales enablement, we kind of just bucket it. And us as product marketers, who we're messaging to, who we're trying to kind of communicate and enable goes beyond sales. Or even within sales, we have sales engineering, and they want the technical depth, that detail. Or inside sales, if we have those resellers or customer success teams that are talking to customers, we're like, cool, we already have your damn product. What can I actually do with it? Where am I getting value? Or separately, where we're working with marketing, and they're that serving as that digital entry point to our product, our solution, our company, the message. How are you guys in your current roles enabling different teams on what product marketing is doing beyond just sales enablement?
Bringing them in. A lot of times they don't have that invite, right? And sometimes I will just forward it so they can be a voice. The other thing is, I know, and I'll apologize later, but the reason I do it is because I want that inclusivity for them to see, hey, I want you to trust to be that fly on the wall. I'm getting you all that information, but I'm gonna make sure that when I deliver it, it's either at a 5th grade level or at an engineering level, right? I speak engineering and I speak 5th grade because I have 3 boys. And so I wanna make sure that I can be able to talk to my audience. And I think the bigger part of what you guys were sharing, Gong is my favorite. I learned this from a sales engineer, is I love podcasts. So during the day, I tell myself, I'm gonna listen to one Gong call, 30 minutes. And I listen to it while I'm working. And I like will pause it because I can hear the sales engineer just get real wrapped up about something. And I'm like, that's what I need to add to like this, like something I have else. So those are just little things in your day while you're working that you can listen to as an audiobook, but it's not. And it can really change the way that your language changes, even in your sequencing. That's helped me a lot. And again, like inviting people. I invite everybody. So if they can't show up, it's fine. I use Fathom to record my calls, and I do that for the transcription purpose, which is incredible. And if not, then it helps them understand like the highlights of what the meeting was about, so they get the gist of it.
And how many times have we as product marketers been like, oh, that team didn't invite us. Like we're supposed to be owning messaging or XYZ initiative or something like that. That's a valid point in terms of inviting others and being that like open transparency example for further partnership in the future, like in that first session. Anything to add?
Yeah, something I'm going to add there is like we modularize the stuff as well. That, okay, yeah, if you're a sales rep, hey, this is the kind of training you have to do. Yeah, if you're an MDR, like a market dev, inside sales, then specific for them. Field marketers are there in the company as well. So yeah, so we have to categorize stuff, but the challenge is to make sure that we do this on a regular basis and to make sure they're actually doing the trainings or not, because that's a key challenge. If you have a lot of products and a lot of people, then you do it the first time, and then after that, people may kind of move on to something else. So being able to do it on a regular basis and create like at different levels, but it cannot be like 8 or 9 levels, then it's hard to keep up. So you have to draw some of the boundaries and make some like hard choices. So yeah, that's how we've been doing it.